The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4WN Radio and Talk 4 TV. Now here's your host, Dr. Nicole Fortin.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode on the Language of Healing on the Women for Women Network, W4WN.com. You can find us every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here, and Talk 4 TV as well. And today I'm so excited to welcome a friend of mine and just a wonderful human being to talk about how to make your dreams come true in regards to publishing books and, effective communication, storytelling. That's so important in today's, in all types of life experiences. The ability to tell a story and to really, add extra life to life. Use your imagination a little bit. We're all about having fun and really embracing that youthful vitality to engage your spirit in living a great life. That's what I stand for and I strive for. And so let's welcome our guest today, Cheryl Fountain. Let's have her on the stage, and our co-host, the pipe man, he might be coming in a little late, but so we might have an invader. He always invades the stage.
Hi Nicole, how's it going today?
It's good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, what's coming? What's been happening in your world lately?
Well, oh my goodness, what's been happening in my world? It's grown. I started writing and publishing my own books in 2020, and from that created a publishing business. So we actually help people self-publish now under Raspberry Press. It's been really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you might as well have a publishing company because you are pumping out books like nobody I know. It's amazing. You have like a total gift for that. So tell us a little bit. Well, I have one of your books here, actually. Assertiveness, a life-changing communication skill.
And
I love
the cover because I learned a lot through my own personal publishing experience about covers and how important they are. And the first time I published that book, I didn't know a lot about publishing. I was just trying to get it out there and just getting the word out there because I used to teach assertiveness training classes. People really benefited from the information. And my goal was, how do I get this information to more people so it's more accessible instead of signing up for a 10-week course, which was, it's not that expensive, but still it could be expensive for some people, where you could get a book that has a lot of the same information in it. And that's when I published that first book, I realized how simple the publishing process could be. And that there's a lot of, I did a lot of research after that and before that to develop my skill set and then to help other people do the same, ways to get their imagination out there, their creativity. Some of it's nonfiction. We do a lot of children's books. I've also published many children's books and more are on the way. It's been absolutely a joy.
Yeah, I know I have purchased a few copies of your children's books, but did not keep any for myself, but I've given them to many friends. And so what are the skills then? You mentioned you had some skill, you had to develop some of those skills. You mean in regards to publishing, or even just writing a book is a mission on its own. So that's a muscle you have to develop and strengthen.
Yeah, so it depends on what type of book you're writing or what genre you're writing. So the books for adults or youth, like the fiction books or the nonfiction books, they take a lot longer to write than, say, a children's book. A children's book is super fun because you get the inspiration and then you write it down like a really rough draft, and then you edit that draft multiple times. But it's a lot less time writing a children's book, say a fiction book or a nonfiction book or a history book, like multiple genres. But it took me about 3 years to fully write and edit this book. We did self-edit with help from my mom, who has a master's degree in English. So that really helped, having in-house support. And then from that, I just realized like the amount of work that you put into your manuscripts, and then you go to submit it to a publisher. And like a traditional publisher, for instance, might not even give you a response back. And so it can be really disheartening for people after they've put so much time and effort, or they've allowed their creativity to flourish, and then people aren't acknowledging it. And I thought that was just really heartbreaking, because most of the literature that is submitted to publishers is actually good. And it's just that they have a publication plan. Like a traditional publishers, they have a niche market, or they're only picking a select few because it's quite an investment for them to put time and effort into making that book out there. So it doesn't mean the writing isn't good. So I wanted to make sure people knew that their work was worth it, and that the traditional publisher not acknowledging it, I don't think is kind, but they're busy. So I get it. So trying to tell people and show people that there is another way to get your books out there and get your creations manifested.
Yeah, there's so many options these days. We'll talk about that a little more. Rebel, do we have Dean in the house?
No, he's not here yet, but he did ask me to hop on and put my 2 cents in. So at Raspberry Publishing, that's the name of your company, correct, Cheryl?
Raspberry Press.
Raspberry Press. Do they have to come with the manuscript already edited, or do y'all have an editing procedure?
Yeah, we do. We have in-house editors now, professional editors, part of the team. So it can also be previously edited, but we would review the manuscript as part of our intake process. But again, it is self-published. So we just offer different levels of services to what the author needs, and they retain like the full rights of their book. And we suggest ideas and decisions, like ideas for them to make decisions on with their manuscripts, but ultimately the final decision is theirs. After we do review the books also for being added to our publications listing, which just gives more visibility to the book on our website. We promote on social media. It doesn't cost anything to the author. We believe as the author grows, we grow. As we grow, the authors grow. It's a service we offer, but we do review each manuscript that crosses our inbox for being part of that publication listing.
That sounds amazing. What genres, do you cover all genres, or are there any we're not going to touch this book genres?
We're open to all genres. I have not yet had a horror book, but I believe horror is also a form of inspiration. We would still assess it to have the Raspberry, like be part of the Raspberry Press publication listing, though. Like we don't really promote hate or anything that would, like our goal is to add joy and inspiration into the world. And I know it sounds weird, but horror can add inspiration and joy, because some people really like horror, but there's a fine line. We don't want to publish anything that's hateful or derogatory in nature. There's history books that we've published, though, and I know in history there has been some very hateful things that have happened. We do again review it just to make sure it's showing an objective view. There's no like that negative stuff we're kind of straying away from. But we're moving towards bringing that joy and inspiration, however it manifests in the genre presented to us.
That sounds amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now can you show your book again for everyone to see? The new cover?
So that's the new cover. It is, so again, as we learn, like covers are really important. They're your sales ad for the book. So when there's millions and millions of books in bookstores and on Amazon, people are often looking for a topic. How they find you, this catches their eye, and this is what is the first thing they decide to click on it or pick it up from the bookshelf. And then the next most important thing is the back blurb. So explaining what it's about. And so this is also part of the sales part of the book, is describing what the book entails, and it's to entice your reader to open the pages and buy the book.
Yeah, what's a process like that? I always am fascinated by the synopsis of a book, like what's like all these pages condensed into such a it's really clear messaging.
Yeah, and that's what we help authors develop the blurbs as well.
So someone could just, come to you with at what stage would someone come to you with their like ready to publish?
So
book?
Honestly, at any stage.
And any stage.
Any stage, if you're writing it and you need help with the visioning for the writing process, we've been trained, like myself and colleagues within Raspberry Press have been trained with neurolinguistic programming, where you help ask questions, but we ask questions to bring out the answers from the author. And so it's coming from that person. We're not telling them what to write or what to do. We're asking questions to help bring out the individual's creativity. Hey, Dean.
Hello there.
How are you?
And I don't even know what I may have missed. Sorry that I had technical difficulties. That's terrible, too, as the station owner, to have technical difficulties.
It happens.
But yeah.
We are in Mercury retrograde,
Well, there you go.
Speaking of which, though, I woke up, this is side tangent, but amazing, because today I saw that there's like a very special window of comets, asteroids, like meteorites. You can look in the sky over the next 2 days, or yesterday and tonight or something like that. And I woke up at 4:30 to, and I thought, oh, I'm going to check out the sky. And it was a clear sky. And there was Jupiter and Mars, like super bright, just lined up.
Wow.
It's like, wow, it's so pretty when you see like the sky bedazzling, and it's like such a source of inspiration, I think. Anyways, I just thought,
Mars,
check out the night sky.
It wasn't Venus or Mercury, it was Mars, because usually we see
it was Mars,
Jupiter, Venus,
right? Those are the normal.
We rarely see Mars, like
Mars and Jupiter were like right close together.
That's really awesome.
Cool.
They also just found out, by the way, that they have more information that there might be really life on Mars, that there's some water reservoir in the core of the planet.
Oh, why do you think they're trying so hard to get there?
Well, because we're destroying this one. That's why.
Well, we might need an alternative for sure.
Right.
Sometime soon. It might take a while to get there and populate it. So
we're out there trying to find another planet to destroy, because
here's their next science fiction.
Well, there's that's exactly
/ future realistic
speculative fiction.
Dune,
too,
the next Dune.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's inspired. Like that's like inspired by life events is how I write, and where I come from. Some of my writers are inspired by dreams. Wyatt Tremblay has a wonderful book called The Key to Enniskillen. It should be a movie, and I'm putting it out there. Like, somebody needs to make this into a movie. We're going to be working towards trying to find somebody who's willing to take a look at it. And it was inspired by a dream. So, I mean, like, it's pretty cool where you can find inspiration. And I'm a big, I love the universe. I love planets and stars. So I totally appreciate your comments.
Well, wouldn't a lot of creativity in writing a book come from dreams, I would think, anyway? Because, you have these dreams, you wake up and like, wow, that would be cool. And if you write it down, like immediately, I think that is kind of where a lot of it comes from, either dreams or daydreaming.
And exactly. And honestly, most people who have written a book and wanting to publish, it is a dream for them to publish that book. It's been a lifelong dream, or since they were a little child, or it's like, you know what I mean? Like, not just a dream or a daydream, but like a personal realization dream.
Yeah.
I've always thought it's like everybody should write a book or have a book, like even just because everyone has a story to share and to tell, and it's almost like a legacy that you leave, or like, or
I
just
think kids
something you contribute.
I think kids should write books, because they're
Yes.
not inhibited. And, I used to do a lot of creative writing when I was a kid that I don't do now. And it's because when you're a kid, There's no inhibitions. You're totally creative, totally imaginative, and adults, like, they almost sometimes feel silly doing those things that kids would do, which I think creates the best creativity there is.
And that's one of the things that stop a lot of people from publishing their book, is that self-doubt, or they're writing and they're continuously stopping or editing as they're writing instead of allowing it to flow. And it's one of the things that we do help people with, is helping them like get their writing out and like helping build that confidence. Because to publish a book, it takes courage to put yourself out there like that. And I 100% agree with you. Children, oh my goodness, the imaginations of children. They could publish books, and we are working on a program with Raspberry Press to have a yearly contest to have children submit manuscripts and help them publish a book each year. It hasn't rolled out yet, but we're working on it.
I used to write so many comic books when I was a kid. That was like my jam.
Well,
it's like I forgot about all that.
Remember too, I don't know if you guys remember, but when I was a kid, you made comic books by taking pieces of paper and drawing on them and then flipping them. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, and they would move.
Yeah, the motion picture.
That's how comic strips were invented, by exactly that.
That's pretty cool.
I think what's also interesting is, I'll bet you, because that's something they teach kids when I was a kid. I'll bet you that's something they don't even teach today, just like they don't teach penmanship, because it's not like really relative today. Like you don't really have comic strips made like that. Like when you watch
your
the
grandkids
comic,
do that?
Say that again?
Do your grandkids do that? Do those things?
No, they're too stuck on their devices. That's the problem. And because of the fact that you don't have comics made that way anymore. If you looked at the old black and white comics on the TV, even, that's exactly how it was made. And you can see it too. Now, if you know about it now and you go watch one of those old ones, you can see how the paper is flipping.
Yeah, now it's
like old Mickey, Disney.
Yeah. Now it's digitalized. So it's a different skill set and a different thing. So like, I know our kids are on those devices a lot. There's a funny movie I watched, and one of the scenes was they were in an old West. And there's this kid, I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was this kid running down the street with this wooden wheel and this wooden stick, and he's pushing the wheel with the stick. And the guys are saying, oh, that's going to rot their brains. Oh yeah, it distracts the kids, and we say that about technology and our children, but it does perform a creative outlet for them too. Like I fully believe, I love printed books. I love them, like love holding them. I love smelling books in the library. I really love the paper books. But this technology thing, we keep saying it's going to hurt our kids, but it is also the way that the world's going, and it is a form of creativity. Digital art is fantastic. One of my children's books has digital art, and it helps turned out real well.
It helps and hurts, I believe, because there's a lot of creativity you can do with these devices, but then there's, like, as an example, there's kids and families that they will not go out with the family, even to family events, because they just want to stay on their device at home. And I even have somebody in my family like that. It's like, nope, I'm not going to that. I just want to stay on my device at home. And
that's addiction.
Yeah, 100%. But these devices and social media, the people that design them in mind with addiction. Like we're all addicted. Okay. And one thing I will say, like you were talking about the books, for me, and I'm a total techie that has, all kinds of technology toys. I can't stand reading a book on like a Kindle or iPad or phone, I'd rather read an actual book, turn the actual pages.
If your book dies, like you have to recharge your book. Isn't that the worst?
Instead of being out on the beach just with your handy book here.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. If you're out on the beach, you can read your book. You can't read your Kindle too easily because the sun in the screen, like you can't look at it. So there again, the beach book is a better place.
I love the physical books. Again, everyone's different. Everyone has different medias that they prefer. So we try to get our books out on different medias, like ebook. We have one audio book right now. We're working on getting some of them on audio. It's a bit of a different process. I love audiobooks because I can be cleaning, I can be jogging, and I can't really, it's hard to follow the book when I'm jogging, but if I'm cleaning, I can follow the book and it's kind of nice. Driving, you can listen to it. It helps relax you, depending on the story. If it's an adventure story, you might need to pull over or something if something too crazy happens. But
I try to listen to audiobooks while I'm driving because I'm on the road a lot, and they just kind of like put me in this trance. I need something that like keeps me alert, like, you know.
And see, I'm totally audiobook. I believe in Automobile University.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like, I
don't listen to fictional ones, but like any of the self-help stuff, I'd rather like and it depends on who the person is. Okay. So if you're talking Tony Robbins, I would much rather listen to an audiobook than read his book because the audiobook will express his personality. If you're talking Deepak Chopra, I'd rather read the book because I love his ideas, but when he speaks, like I'm bored to death because it's that very monotone and it depends on the personality. Like my personality, I prefer a more animated like Tony Robbins. Some people don't. So it depends on the person for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you as a publisher, Cheryl, you guys have to kind of figure that stuff out. Like you go through a process to be like, what's the personality of this book? What do you do for the voiceovers? Rebel does voiceovers.
I'm gonna be back.
Have you ever done an audiobook? Rebel, have you ever done an audiobook? I don't know what.
See, I literally meant a second.
Cute. I have done auditions for audiobooks. And I have 2 still in the possibility stage. It's really different, especially if they want you to do different voices. And Pipe Man says I refer to one particular voice.
No, Rebel has lots of little girl voices. But they're all little girl voices.
I've voiced a lot of cartoon characters that needed younger voices because they're younger animated children.
And at Raspberry Press, we have one voice. It's James' voice. He could do children's books, and he wouldn't be able to do my assertiveness book because it's a woman author. It's kind of a lot of women content, but we can help people navigate the process. So as Rebel's been on the side of editioning, you can actually sign up to test, like they do samples online, the different voices, and you can pick a couple and ask for quotes. So we can help the authors navigate that system under consultation.
I want to go a step further too. What you're talking about books, it's hard to see because of my virtual background.
Yeah,
blending in, but that's my book.
Well, yeah, Dean's
focusing in doesn't help my virtual background there much.
Put it like right, put it on your chest or something.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, that worked. Good job, Nicole.
Who said?
No wonder you're the doctor of the show.
I'm resourceful, that's for sure.
So. Yeah. And one thing I bring up too, okay, so my book's available in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. And I can tell you right now, for me, I also prefer a hardcover. So again, going back to like if you're doing Kindle, there's a Kindle. But I like the idea of having different types, and I like having hardcover, and it's just like when you make vinyl records, there's different types of vinyl. And I can tell you, I have a storage place that is half of it is just for my books because I just can't get rid of books either. You're not supposed to. Remember when we were younger, like it's like sacrilegious.
I regret every book I've ever given away, donated.
Yeah, I have boxes.
And which is like I should like share the knowledge, but I'm like that's rich.
And I don't. And this is different for me. So children's book, yes, I keep them. I pass them down. I have a 23-year-old and an 8-year-old. So they were very well used children's books. Some of the ones I've given away, I've regretted the children's books. But books themselves, I've usually read them enough where I don't need to read them again. Some I keep that I do refer to over and over again, mostly self-helpy stuff. But I think if you pass it on, like I usually donate to those. I don't know if you have them everywhere in the world, but they have these little free libraries in front of people's houses where you can take and donate books to. So I know it's getting in somebody else's hands. So sharing it, or use bookstores. And there's even a bookstore in St. Albert that when they sell the book, they donate proceeds to the local hospital. So I love sharing books, and I don't mind rebuying them. I've rebought a few books a number of times after I've given it away. Even you're supporting the author.
Yeah,
I love
true.
used books. I love used books because I would go in like when books were a thing to go out and buy them. I guarantee you in my collection I have books I probably didn't even read yet because I just would see books and buy them. And especially in a used bookstore because it didn't cost that much. So I'd buy a whole bunch of them. My college textbooks I still have. Like I didn't even like
those
get
are like
rid of
essential
them
resources.
either, and it comes in handy for when you got this younger generation that thinks they know more. And so like something came up recently where I was talking about one of my grandkids was saying something about 1 + 1 = 2. I'm like, when you get to really advanced math, they're going to teach you how 1 + 1 = 3. And then another adult there said, I'm taking calculus 3 and I never heard that. And said that to a grandkid. So I can go to my storage bin and pull out my calculus book and show that the first chapter is where they teach you limits and how you can prove that 1 + 1 = 3. But maybe you forget that when you get to calculus 3.
I do remember that. And I remember being blown away.
Right?
The whole world was turned upside down. But it is. Math is, it's so creative. Like there's people out there who apparently can do equations to make flowers or something. It's beyond me. But there's metaphysical mathematics.
Like Fibonacci sequence or something. Like, well, okay, so here's something cool though. Like speaking of numbers, that we actually train children to be linear, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually in like babies or if you didn't train people to be like that, you would be very animalistic in nature. So 1 + 1 = like more. Like they don't see 1. It's like you have 1 and then you take 1 more and they'll take like a ton more, like there's no, I don't know if that makes sense, but
I've taught that
it's like
1 + 1 = 11.
Yeah.
There you go. And it can. And it can. And it depends on how your mind works, which is why anybody that's an author and has an idea should write a book because there's so many. You could think, well, that book's already been written, but has it been written? Maybe it hasn't been written. The ideas change, things evolve, and even the fact of like what we're talking about, stuff like a perfect example is one of the books that I have in storage, and it's more to just blow my kids and grandkids' mind is my book from typing class. We're not talking computer class.
It's an archive.
It was not. Nobody had a computer. Nobody had a computer. It was typing class. And it was required to take typing class when I was in 8th grade. And, the funny thing is my youngest daughter, she's like, when she sees me on the laptop, she's like, Dad, you type really fast. Well, yeah, that's because I was taught something kids today aren't taught. Like they're not taught how to type.
They don't do typing class anymore.
They don't do keyboarding either. Like that's why you see so many of these kids. They'll be like finger pecking it.
It's just supposed to be intuitive or instinctual.
Like I would like to. Let's do a show where we get a whole bunch of kids, all different ages, and ask them to define to us what is home row. And I'll bet you 0 know.
My son knows. My
Nice.
son is taught. He's in
I
grade.
bet.
He's
Cheryl,
going into
you're
grade
awesome.
3. He knows home row, and
Nice.
he did learn it. He learned it in grade 1. So
I
they're
love
learning this in grade 1. Just saying.
Okay.
See, now that's good.
Well, maybe that's the difference between Alberta and Florida or something.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't think it's a majority of everywhere or what that does that anymore. Because if you say something like that to my grandkids, well, I need to take a typing class for. I have a phone. Because this younger generation that they won't even use computers for anything most of the time. They use phone for everything. And me, I think there's a time and a place to use a computer still nowadays. Even though I can do everything on my phone, I think that's something that's missed too, is that people are missing things. And I think they're missing that in Kindle books too and stuff like that. Like there's just like with albums, like you said, there's something to holding that book and the artwork on the book. Because listen, how many people that are reading Kindles actually pay attention to the artwork of the book or the forward or the summaries or any of that most of the time, except to see if they want to download it? But usually any kind of technology, they're just going right for the meat and potatoes.
Interestingly, so I have dyslexia, and so I still, if I'm taking a course, I still order a hard proof book because I have a harder time retaining information from a screen than I do physical. One of my workarounds was underlining when I read things that I think are important. It helps me interpret the information. So when I do editing, I print it out physically to do it because I catch more things. My editors do both. They can either do it on the screen or print it out. But I know trees, we love trees. There are a lot, we can replant trees though, so they are a renewable resource. So I do love them, but I also appreciate that they give their life so I can learn and I can retain information. There's a lot of kids out there too who are now being taught with screens. Like they're allowed to bring, like each kid has iPads in some of these more well-to-do schools. It might be harder for some of those students to learn off of a screen because you don't interpret the information the same way. You're constantly getting flashes of light. Like, I don't even know how many times per second light's flashing at you. And that's what your brain's interpreting. In one of my upcoming books as a writer, so I'm a publisher, I help people publish, but I'm also a writer. It's a assertiveness book for youth. And there's a whole section on screens, the addiction to screens, like ways to work, to like stay off of them 2 hours before bedtime. If you're noticing you're getting more anxieties, try staying off of them for a few days and see the difference, things like that, because it does affect your neurological, like it affects the way your brain works. And it's similar to drugs where you get the hits and you need more hits and you can't sleep because you need the hits. So I do see the both sides, like what you can use creatively, but there's balance. You need balance in everything you do, your food, and same with writing and publishing. You have lots of energy and there's ups and downs, but it's making sure that it's a balanced process. You're not throwing, I don't know how to explain it. You're not shutting off the world to publish your book or shutting off the world to write your book. But at the same time, you need those parts of time where you are focused on it, but you just need that overall balance in everything you do.
Absolutely. And I think too, with, what you're talking about, for me, going to college, going to high school, how did you study for an exam? You highlighted. That's what you did. So
and you rewrote it out,
well, that's another thing too. They taught us when we were younger, how much you retain by writing it.
Always.
And so I don't think that holds true necessarily with the typing as much as the writing. I could be wrong, but I don't think that it's not the same physical activity that your brain.
I feel like we're all kind of old school in the same way. Give me the hard copy.
Writing by hand is a little different. I now type. I used to only write by hand, but then you have to retype it out. So ideas though,
or audio, or dictate it, or something.
Or doing a storyboard, right? I'll write that out by hand and I post different things on the wall, and then you can move things around when you're planning out your manuscript. But typing out the full manuscript is a lot more time efficient.
Oh, I agree 1,000,000%. Okay. Because what happens when you write handwriting, then you still have to type it anyway. And then, you have a bunch of cross outs and it's not neat and stuff. Like, to me, what I love about typing a book is that it's so easy to edit as you're going. And I want to talk about editing for a second because I think that's important. Most people don't realize that 99% of books that are on the bookshelves in bookstores still have copyright errors in them.
Oh, absolutely. So this is a living thing. So a book, and that's why I really appreciate what we help people do with self-publishing is you have full control over that. So if you catch a typo in the future, you can change it because we make sure people get their all their editable files for the book. So even traditional publishers, every time I read, I edit now. I can't not read a book and find errors. And that's just what I do. Like if I'm reading for fun, I'm always like, it's interesting. It doesn't bug me, but I'll tell you at the beginning of this publishing process, it used to drive me nuts. And then I had to remind myself that it's literally everywhere. Traditional publishers, when people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for an edit, or if people only pay hundreds of dollars for an edit, you're going to have a typo. And it's actually really important because that's like our life. If you're not perfect, nothing's perfect. But the beauty of it is, especially if you're a self-published author, you can fix it. If somebody tells you about it, you can go back, fix your file, re-upload it to your the distributor that you choose. And then your new copy, like the old ones that have been printed previously, will have that typo, but you can actually fix it. And it's kind of like when you grow in life, you have those little errors.
Yeah.
You can constantly work on it, improve it, find it, tweak it, and then put out another best version of yourself.
I was thinking of that when you had like the original copy of the assertiveness book, and then like you just, oh, this works better, I'm just going to change it. Like how
the cover. Yeah.
How nice. Yeah.
And there's a lot of freedom in that.
I think that actually like an image of you is like people want to see, like to see you and your personality and, oh, there's someone behind this. There's a human behind that.
And that was the publishing team's decision. I at that point in time was not courageous enough to put and they're like, it's not like in nonfiction books, it's often either big words or the writer on the cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was terrified. And then I kind of realized, but it is me. Like, this is like the knowledge that I've gained and I'm sharing with people. They don't have to love it. They don't have to like it, but I'm putting it out there. Might as well put my face on it. And then people start to recognize me too as the author, but also in all the public, like the publisher materials for Raspberry Press, I try to put my face on there because I was inspired to bring Raspberry Press to the world based on my own experiences, working through the traditional publishing process, working through the self-publishing process, and knowing the emotional part of it and feeling like I wasn't good enough, and then realizing I was good enough, and that wanting to show other people their writing and they are good enough that they can do this too.
Mm-hmm.
I think something else that happens that people shouldn't stress out about is how long it takes you to finish your book sometimes. Because that's that creative flow. Like my book, I wrote half of it in one night, 24 hours, and then the other half 6 months later. Because after that first half, I was like done, and I really didn't get back to it till 6 months later. But because of that, some people stress out about it, but then you're letting the creative juices flow the way they're organically supposed to flow instead of forcing it. And I think it makes for better content.
And that's exactly what we tell our writers. So when you're writing, you can be like kind of self-deprecating at the same time. Writers we're all different, but there's also there's some key similarities. And so that's exactly it. Sometimes you just need a break from the manuscript. Some writers get deadlines, especially with traditional publishers, or they have self-deadlines. So the self-publishing process is great because you can move your self-deadlines very easily. With a traditional publisher, not so much. I'm sure you can negotiate if you need to. Like, I really can't do this. I need some more time, I'm sure. But with self-publishing, you can set, I do recommend setting target lines for different stages of your writing process. However, giving yourself that grace, because sometimes you need to walk away. Like if you're writing a fiction and your character's in something and then you're stuck. Well, maybe forcing the stuck isn't going to work. So maybe going for a walk or putting it down, working on another section of your book, maybe developing a different character or something, like taking its pieces that come together, as you had said, Nicole, earlier, that come together to build the book. And you don't have to write it in one flow. You can write chapter 7 first. You can write chapter 1 last. After you know how the book ends.
Yeah, that's what the storyboard's for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of writers do that too. Me, I started with from college writing, as if I was writing an essay. I started with the chapter names first, and then I filled in the blanks of the chapters.
That's really, that is a technique that a lot of people use. It's a really good one.
Yeah, because it keeps you kind of like focused and organized. Like, I'm big into the organization part of it. So like when I used to write papers in school, I would say probably most of them that I got A's on were a whole bunch of bullshit, to be blunt, because it wasn't I did exactly what they taught me to do. I created an outline and then filled in the blanks all the way down the line. So I wasn't really writing it. I was just kind of like answering my own questions.
And that's why I do so well at publishing and helping others publish. Publishing is just that. It's a formula, and you fill in the blanks. There's certain steps you got to take in each stages of the process. So it's similar to like a paper. You got, your introduction, your thesis, your paragraph 1, 2, 3, and your conclusion kind of thing. It's the same with publishing. You just need to know what to fill in the spaces with. So the writer does the writing, and we help them fill out the rest of the formula.
I love that too, because I think it's a great way for many people to write, because I think it helps in avoiding writer's block. Because if you just have a blank piece of paper and you're just trying to think of what to write, but if you set up an outline and like having chapter names, titles is an outline, then you kind of like you create the creativity by starting somewhere. You have a foundation to work on, and I think that's much easier. It's just like you wouldn't have a debate without knowing what the topic of the debate is. But once you know the topic, it's much easier to debate it.
Yeah.
It's the synopsis of the book. It's like the condensed, if you started with the back of the book.
Exactly.
And you expand. Sorry, Cheryl, you were going to say something.
No, it's lovely. I was just thinking the same thing with publishing. Again, there's just the different stages. But the titles, that's what I was going to say. Even though you might start with your outline and your titles, those can change too.
Yeah.
You can, like a book title of mine changed, Sock Suit 2. It was, it changed at the very end. And I've also helped that with different authors. Like a lot of people come with a title. Titles are really important because it's also part of the sales of the book. Like if it's a catchy title, it's memorable. So we do help authors with that too. So they might have they're sold on an idea of a title. Again, it's their book, their final decision. But we have a mastermind group that plays with the title, come up with different things and come up with the best solution. You can also actually take your titles options to focus groups. So if you're a children's book author, you could ask a friend who might be a teacher or a school, and it would be awesome. They would totally support you, especially high schools and elementary schools would support you. You could do a little bit of, you're part of my writing process or my publishing process. Here's a couple titles. Which one do you like best? So you can do that kind of stuff as a self-published author too. And schools are usually very eager to support, and also are like literary groups that people who support literacy and have like groups of people where they teach literacy too. They're also very eager to support writers and publishers, like self-publishers.
I think the title is one of the most important things for a few reasons. One is that's what's going to catch somebody's attention to actually look at the book. But more importantly, I think where you need to help people right now on this show is it seems like everybody is an author nowadays, but the one thing they didn't teach all these authors is your title is not supposed to be the synopsis of the book.
Yes.
Oh my God, you know how many authors I deal with that, and same with show hosts. They want to name their show like it's the whole description of the show, and leave nothing to the imagination, and it bores people. Like, what are some of the best books?
It's like too long, didn't read. Isn't that like a thing?
Yeah. Well, some of the best books have a one-word title.
Dune, for instance, we talked about Dune earlier. And that book, it's a thick book, but it's people love it, and it's just Dune.
And let's talk about too the different styles of readers. Like, for instance, one of my favorite fictional authors, and it's not because of the content, even though I like the content, is James Patterson. And the reason why is because every chapter of his is 1 or 2 pages long.
Okay, so
and
shorter.
So for me, if a chapter's 30 pages, 40 pages, 50 pages, okay, I'm going to read that chapter. Before I start the next chapter, I got to make sure I have time for that. But when I read a James Patterson book, it's like I finish a chapter and it's like, oh, I'll do the next chapter. Because it takes you 2 seconds. So it's like, and then before you know it, you finish the book. And I like that, breaking things down into the smallest compartments. So if I could have 20 chapters that are 2 pages long, opposed to one chapter that's 20 pages or 40 pages long, I'm going to pick the 20 chapter one every single time.
And that's genre specific too, though, like how long your book is, like how many pages are in a chapter. Like I really believe in balance again, but different genres, like, again, people are attracted to different genres for different reasons. Everyone's different, but they do have similarities. So if big sci-fi people, they go to conventions because they like a lot of similar things. So they will tolerate a different type of length of book or how it's presented, even like the font. The artwork that might be in it, the title headings, the type, like all that's really important, and it's genre specific. So like a history reader, oh my goodness, people who read history, my heart goes out to them, because like I do have an author, David Moore, who writes history, and he makes it accessible to people. He's under Raspberry Press, like he publishes with Raspberry Press, but most history books I really have a hard time reading because it's hard to keep my attention. But the way he writes it is like, I don't know how he does it. But again, it's very lengthy, right? Very lengthy, a lot of text. So that's the genre. So people who enjoy history enjoy reading that. This gentleman you mentioned who published a book with 2 pages a chapter, I've never seen it. I'm going to look it up because I'm very curious.
He's a very famous author.
Yeah, I actually not heard of him.
It's one of those crime books. He's like one of the most famous authors, but yeah, James Patterson. He has a character. It's Detective Cross.
Okay.
And all these books, every chapter is like 1.5 pages, 2 pages. And me personally, I love that because I'd rather, again, I feel too, as a motivational person, a goal person. So like I can set goals easier. Like I believe in setting smaller goals because it makes it easier to achieve that big goal by breaking it down into small. So to me, it's like reading the next chapter in his books are always a goal because it's always so short. So I'm going to go to the next one. And it does.
You get that instant dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Success.
And it makes.
Achieved.
Like it makes you get to where you want to go in the book quicker, I think. But everybody's different for sure, and what they like. And you have 3 different types of people you have to appeal to: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So that's another thing for maybe another show should talk about how to write for those different people.
Yeah, you got to know your audience. I was thinking about Moby Dick. You know, that book, it's like such a timeless classic. And then you read it and you're like, oh my God.
I loved it.
It's just like, yeah, no, I'm
different
a total
people, different people.
I love it too. Actually, the audiobook is really good too. If you're ever into that, this guy that records it has like a real old school voice. It's like very nice. Good to fall asleep to. Okay, we're done. We have to wrap up. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely. Okay, tell us real quick, how can people reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Email info@raspberrypress.ca, and the website is www.raspberrypress.ca. So please reach out to me. I'd be really happy to see your manuscripts, help you publish your book, help you, with your dream, because that's what I love to do. It's my favorite thing in the world. So
awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much. Okay. Well, we'll sign off for now and see you guys all next week for more adventures on the language of healing.
Why don't you tell them when next week?
Oh, yeah. Well, you missed the beginning. So it's Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on W4WN.com and Talk4TV.
Nice.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. You rock.
May all your dreams come true.
Wow, what a show today. And the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4WN Radio and Talk4TV. See you next week.